Welcome to the Shatterproof Entrepreneur. I am Scott Reeb, your host, and we have a special guest with us today, my friend Brady Slack. Brady, welcome to the Shatterproof Room.
Thank you, Mr. Reeb. I was excited when you asked me. It'll be a good one.
Yeah, it's always fun when I have someone on that I know, because it's not
Yeah.
awkward, and because I know how much value they really have to offer you, the audience. And so, want to kind of jump in. Brady, you're in the finance and the numbers part of business. I'm the law side, and you and I work together quite a bit because those two intersect because we have clients that need both of those things. And you do that through your firm is called High Country Finance. Is that correct?
Yep, you got it.
Well, what inspired you to start your own firm?
That's a loaded question, Scott. You know what? I grew up for as long as I can remember thinking I want to be a tax accountant. Said no one ever, right? That's so I was in college and I didn't know what I wanted to be until I knew that I didn't want to be a doctor because I barely passed a biology class. And at that point, all I knew was I wanted to be, at the time, my mindset was I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be wealthy and successful. What college student doesn't, right? And so I'd heard these people kind of talk about accounting is the language of business. And so I was like, well, okay, if accounting is the language of business, I just gotten done serving a church mission in a foreign country where I understood how important learning and understanding a language was. I thought, okay, that might give me kind of a really good leg up. So I started studying accounting. While I was studying accounting and personal financial planning, my now wife's dad, my father-in-law, owns a pretty successful business and said, hey, my accountant is looking to hire someone. You're studying accounting. Why don't you go work for him? And it just so happened he was paying me more, or he was going to pay me more than where I was working. And so I thought, it's kind of a win-win. I'll make more money and I'll get some experience. And that's kind of how I got my, at the time she was my girlfriend, but my wife kind of tripped me. My father-in-law pushed me and I kind of fell in love with it, right? That's what I say. But yeah, I started working for that firm. It was a local family office here in Utah, in the Salt Lake Valley. And I learned a lot. I kind of got thrown into the mix really early on. They had a big need. And so like the very first day I remember, it was actually a client that I still work with. The client take home gross is well over $1 million a year. He's got quite an extensive real estate portfolio. He dabbles in quite a few different alternative investments. And I thought, I have no idea what in the hell I'm doing, but like that was what I got thrown into. But that experience kind of was a rocket launch for, where I was able to go. And then how I started my firm in 2020 when COVID started happening. There were some issues at the firm where I was working at, and a door opened and I kind of went full throttle. We were in a position, me and my wife were in a position where we didn't have any kids yet. We just gotten into a home, but she had a really good business that she had running. And anyways, I took the leap and here we are, close to 4 years later and 26 employees more. And hundreds of clients more than where I was when I started. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, that is. And I mean, you've done a lot of things, but you've done it really fast. You've really had a very quick growth curve. In your journey and starting and establishing High Country, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Partners were one of them. When I first started out, I had been given an opportunity to start the business with someone who I knew and I trusted, and I still to this day know very well, and a great individual by all means. But I was naive. I'm still young, but I was younger and more naive, right? And I didn't really understand the metrics of business. He kind of partnering with this individual gave me the opportunity to take less risk than I would have otherwise. But it wasn't the right partner for this specific business. And so a couple $100,000 later and a buyout, some hard feelings, we kind of got over that hump. And I think, and I say this, but this has also been kind of one of my one of my drivers, if you will. I'm young, and unfortunately for me, when I say I'm a tax accountant, people kind of, I don't know, the tax accountant's supposed to be an older guy who has a lot of experience, who, maybe some white hairs. And I'm just not that. I also don't wear a suit and a tie all the time. That's just not my mojo. I would much rather be outside in the mountains than I would be behind a computer. And so I think those two or three factors where I'm not your typical CPA, that like, I think that's actually been something that it's been hard to overcome, right? I think I've done a good job at it, but it has been hard to come just because of the stereotypes that come along with that. So those are two things that have been a little difficult, I think. But again, they've been driving forces. Like I'm here to prove people wrong,
Yeah, I think you've probably turned some of that into an advantage, but the partner
Yeah.
thing is definitely a challenge. And I've had this firm 18 years and have looked before at of having partners and just never been able to pull the trigger um, for fear that it would not turn out right. And so I've instead done a
Yeah.
lot of strategic partnerships with you. I've got other people in different
Yeah.
industries, business coaches, for instance, that I'll align with. And even I have some lawyers that we have very strategic partnerships where they do certain things for me, but our businesses aren't so intertwined that I would ever have to do a buyout
Give up
to
the equity.
move
Yeah.
move away from somebody. I may at some point get over that and find there might be the person that I can do it with, but I haven't found them yet. Uh,
Yeah.
yet. And I'm not as young as I used to be, that's for sure. Let's see, the years start catching up to me. Um, so uh, what would you say is your firm's unique selling proposition? What makes High Country unique?
Well, that's actually an interesting question because again, going back to what has been difficult for us, um, what makes us unique is that we actually have done or are doing what our clients want to do. And what I mean by that, we have a lot of clients in real estate. Well, both me and my partner, Mike, who deals a lot with our accounting, bookkeeping, and CFO clients, we have owned or currently own real estate, right? Rental real estate. We have lots of clients who invest in alternative assets, whether that be it crypto, energy, oil and gas. We've done that. We're accredited investors and we do invest in those. We have clients who want to start a business, which obviously we have both done. And we have clients who want to exit or get funding for businesses. Well, guess what? We have done that. We have a software company that's gone through, an 8-figure round and in the venture capital space. And so we understand what that looks like. I think one of the biggest detriments in my industry, or one of the biggest downfalls, is accountants by trade are not great communicators and they are not great problem solvers. They're really good problem finders, but they're not great problem solvers. And so what makes us unique is we do and have done what our clients want to do and want to accomplish. We're either currently doing it or we have done that. And most accountants have never owned a business. They have never actually done their own accounting for their own business and tried to reinvest funds back into their own business. Most of those clients have never took funds that they have that have been generated from another business to start some other business or invest into partnerships or funds or syndications. And so even though they might understand the number aspect of it, they don't understand the emotional side or the logical side of some of that, that an entrepreneur or business owner goes through every day.
Yeah. And one of the shatterproof strategies that we teach our clients is to establish a team of key advisors, one of which is the accounting side. And we always talk to them about it's not an accounting firm, it's an accountant, it's a relationship with somebody that they know you and that you can trust, and someone that's going to give you that different perspective, the outside, the forest from the trees kind of perspective on
Yeah.
where you're going, where you've been for sure, and can we adjust from that? Because I find a lot of accountants, CPAs, all of it are what I call historians. All they can tell me is where I've been, and they have no interest
Yep.
in really helping me navigate forward. And when you and I met in Salt Lake in September of 21, I think is when it was.
Yeah,
I
it's been
very
about 2
quickly
years.
figured out that you were different and that you were trying to help your clients navigate their way through all the IRS stuff and keep more of their money. And I've heard you talk
Yeah.
about that the way the IRS code is set up is that they basically have set it up to encourage certain behaviors. Am
Yeah.
I getting that right? Okay.
Well, I always kind of say the IRS has two objectives. The first objective that they have is to raise revenue. Like if they're not making money, our country has some serious problems. But the second objective that they impose is they want to incentivize activity. How do they incentivize activity? Well, they give individuals who are doing what they want them to do business deductions or tax deductions, tax credits, write-offs, and incentives to do what they provide goods, provide housing, provide food, provide energy, things like that. So, yeah, when it comes down to it, you can either pay the tax or you can provide a service that they want you to and not pay the tax. That's that's really what it comes down. But I'll say that not everyone is fit to provide a service. Like we need employees. We have really good employees, and employees also make the world go round, right? So my little asterisk in that conversation.
Yeah, and this show is for the people that aren't employees. But it's not good or better or best. It's just different.
Right.
People like us we're just different. I'd like to say I'm probably unemployable at this point after I haven't had a W-2 since 1997 was my
Yeah.
last one. So it's like I really don't think I'd be someone's good employee, although I was a good employee then. Now I
Yeah.
kind of like to set my own schedule. If I want to be outside, like you said, if I want to be out doing things, I want to go do it. I don't really want to have to check
Yeah.
with anybody. And so I've kind of gotten used to that. And that's a part of the reward for the entrepreneurial journey. But you definitely have to pay some dues to get there. Um, I've been seeing a lot of technological changes, and you're in the software business too, so I know you're seeing that. How are you
Yeah.
seeing technology, like specifically uh, artificial intelligence, which Chat GPT seems to be the winner in that game right now? How are you seeing
Yeah.
that going to affect the business world?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways that technology and artificial intelligence is going to shape different businesses. I'll speak on my own, right? And
Yeah.
when we talk about accounting and tax, what's interesting is the IRS just rolled out an automatic filing system through the irs.gov website, which is interesting because there are already other countries who on January 1st at 12:01 a.m. individuals can sign into their account, process their return, approve it, and get money right in their bank account deposited the next day.
Hmm.
And so why the United States does not already have an automatic filing system is a little bit beyond me, but I'll take it one step further. Like we're seeing some softwares that claim that they can use AI to automatically enter in data to a tax return. We like even internally, we use a couple different softwares and we're implementing more softwares for our clients so that you fill information out and it automatically uploads it through your organizer into the tax return. What that allows us to do is spend less time on data entry and more time on review and planning. So directly equates to hopefully more tax savings for our clients, right?
Yeah.
We see more opportunity for artificial intelligence to do bookkeeping and accounting, which is really good because that's just it's man hours, and that does cost a lot, which means hopefully for the client or the customer, it means that your cost can be lower for some of those services, and maybe our margins as the firm be a little higher. So again, we can provide a higher quality service to the individual. Um, I think there's I think it will take some time. We're still really early, and there's a lot of compliance when it comes to taxes. But those are a couple different ways that I've seen the technology and artificial intelligence start to affect our industry.
Yeah, it's definitely making changes in the legal side of work too. It's a huge lever as far as the kind of the repetitive tasks and more
Yeah.
the lower level tasks where we can have things done more quickly, and it's really done at a pretty high quality to where you can then get it to the next level of employee that can make sure it's right, because one thing is it's not always
Yeah.
right. But it's
Yeah.
been a huge lever for us, and I think we're just starting to use it. I think it's going to be a big game changer for people that are willing to look at it and try to figure out how to use it. I've been equating it
Yeah.
to you'll talk to people that they're scared of it, but to me, it's like the tractor for farming and agriculture, and people were scared of the
Hmm.
tractor back then, and if you didn't have it, you got left behind. And I think Chat
Yeah.
GPT AI is going to be like that. So if you're listening and you haven't figured out yet how to use artificial intelligence in your business, you need to start looking for ways that you can use it as that lever to be more highly productive, maybe increase your profit margin, and always looking for how can you use it to provide more value to your customer or client. Because if you can provide more value, then this will make everything else you do easier, makes your sales cycle
Yeah.
easier, makes retention easier. Brady, both you and I have kind of a subscription program where people aren't always paying us, by the hour like a lot of professionals do. How have you found that to work in the accounting space?
I think there's a couple different ways, and you and I have spoken about this before, right? But I think
Yep.
traditionally, both accountants and lawyers have charged on a per hour rate, right? And what that has done is instilled a mindset in our clients to where they feel like if they call us or send us an email, they're on the clock and they're going to have to pay for it. And so inversely, what that does is rather than encourage the client to reach out to us, is it actually discourages them. They don't want to pay money to just ask us a question or reach out. And oftentimes, and I know you see this because I see it and tell you I see it, but oftentimes what that means is the client will go try and start a business or create some sort of document on their own without maybe reviewing it with you that could have major legal implications in the long run. Or maybe when it reverts to an accounting client, they'll go and try and implement some tax strategy they saw from some guru on social media, and it
Yeah.
ends up costing them in the long run, you know? And so for me, when I got into the industry, I knew that I didn't want the hassle of trying to figure out how to do hourly billing. That's a pain for me, and I wanted to provide that value you were just talking about to our clients. And in my mind, the only, again, I didn't really have that old school big four accounting
Mm-hmm.
experience. And so it wasn't hard for me to know and understand that in a business, like in a natural business model, my business was more scalable and easier to sell if I had a recurring revenue model.
Yep.
Yeah, like that increases my ability to sell my business by 1 or 2x more than if I were just charging an hourly rate and someone was buying my client list. Well, now they know exactly how much I'm making every month. I know exactly how many clients I have. I know exactly what the services are and the deliverables are, so that I know, okay, on the back end, what are my profitability metrics? How many employees do I need to have per client? What are those employees that I need to have? And how much can I afford to put into X, Y, and Z? If I bill hourly, I don't know any of those numbers. So there were a couple different reasons why I decided it was probably better.
Yeah, and that's obviously worked out really well for you. Yeah, I do. I came from a by the hour background. I mean, I
Yeah.
when I first got out of law school and was working, I had to, I had a set number of hours I had to bill. I was had to bill at a rate of, I think it was 175 an hour, and do turn in times. You actually wrote little pieces of paper called time slips,
Yeah.
and then turned them into the billing clerk, and it was awful. Um,
That sounds like a
and I,
nightmare.
yeah, and then when I started my own firm in 2005, I left another firm, and so I left with business. And so I was very blessed to be busy. And so I
Yeah.
got in my office and started working. As soon as I had my new computer, I was working. And I looked up, and suddenly it was April. It was April. And I looked at my bank account, and the money was going down. And I realized I hadn't billed my clients. I hadn't even
Mm,
thought about billing my clients because I just was doing the work. And so I had to
Yeah.
then, and hadn't purchased a software system to do it. So I had to put together through Excel spreadsheets, bills to send out bills to all my clients. It was crazy. And so I did then hire a billing clerk, bought some billing software, and started to do that. But as the firm grew, it would take sometimes 2 full days out of a month for everybody to just keep track their time, review the bills. It was a total nightmare, and the clients didn't like it. And so that's where, 2012, we ended up creating a new system so that we could move away from the billable hour, and now we have the access plan, and it's been a game changer for me and for a lot of people that we work with. You've been a part of our program for a little bit. What would you say are the advantages to working with a lawyer that is on a subscription plan?
Well, I think it's easier for me knowing that, one, there's constant communication so that you understand hey, what are we doing in our businesses? Nothing comes as a surprise, and we don't have to play a ton of catch up. I think that goes for accounting too. We'll have some clients who don't pay us monthly, and they just pay us a one-off advisory fee, and they come to us and say, hey, I did X, Y, or Z over the past 4 or 5 or 6 months. And now we're saying, well, shoot, had you done 1, 2, 3, we could have saved you that in taxes, and same goes with you with our legal stuff. Hey, I did XYZ over the past month is a lot different than I did XYZ over the past 6 months. Right. So that's the first thing. And then I think the next thing that I know we've part of it is just kind of like a peace of mind, hey, it's there if I need it. When I don't need it, it's still there. But when I do need it, it's there. And when I need it, I can use it and it's accessible to me. Whereas if it was just like on a per calendar link basis, I don't know that I would have that same amicability towards that relationship.
Yeah. And I think I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to break a rule and ask it anyway. Have you used this more than you thought you would?
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of remember our initial conversation. You were like, it sounds like a good idea, but I'm just not sure how much we would use it.
Yeah. Well, and for our accounting firm, we really haven't used it a ton for our accounting firm, which is actually the business initially that I thought we would use it more for, but we've used it more for our software company just because of the growth. It's been an immediate growth, and there's been lots of different things that in my mind I didn't know I needed, but they came up and I needed them. Right. But it's much better to at least have that conversation and say, hey, even last week, hey, we need a document for this transaction we're going to make. And you understood exactly what it was and said, okay, great, I'll put it in the to-do list and we'll get that done. And that's way different than us trying to have to figure out who we need to communicate with, setting up a meeting for 2 weeks out, not getting the document when we need it. And it's a world of difference. But yeah, I definitely use it more than I think we thought we would need it.
Yeah. Well, let's turn a little bit. I know that you're on my podcast and you have your own podcast, Slacking Off. Tell me a little bit about that. Why did you start a podcast?
So this is, I hated doing my podcast, to be honest with you. I started it because, I had some business coaches that were telling me, hey, you have a great platform. You need to film more content. That's an easy way to film content. Truthfully, that's why I started it. Right.
Okay,
and great. It kind of morphed into more of a chore for me. Having to figure out all the equipment and having to have a conversation. And so I'm actually changing my podcast entirely. In the fact of, everything's going to be fairly the same, but the format in which I do it is going to be different. I feel like there are lots of financial gurus, business coaches. There's a lot of financial porn online, and I don't feel like people have a really decent source to go to besides maybe online, which is a whole other slew in and of itself, to get questions to their answers specific to their situations. I think that's the biggest part. And so What I'm actually doing is I'm actually doing it a little bit more, maybe Dave Ramsey style, where people can send in their question, schedule 15 to 20 minutes of my time, and I can answer their question as it relates to their situation. Not only will I think that help those individuals, but it will help other individuals who are listening to the podcast who might have similar situations give at least a basis on what they need um, to do in their situations. And then every once in a while, I'll throw in a long form with some sort of expert, maybe like yourself, if I have some legal questions that we can dive into, or, someone who does trusts, or someone who does financial advising, or oil and gas, like specific industry experts. I think that'll start next year at the beginning of the year.
Oh, that's going to be great. So you'll actually have them on. It's not, I mean, it's live, but it's not like broadcast. You're not going to be streaming it, but they'll come on your show, and they'll be live asking you questions, and you'll answer them right there with them on it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for that. When do you think that will come out?
So I'm going to start filming the first episodes the first and second week of January. So hopefully before the end of January, I'll start throwing out some of those episodes, and they'll be quicker. I personally enjoy listening to a quick podcast. Give me 5-10 action items I can go implement. So, 15-20 minutes, and then they'll be done. A quick drive to work. So,
well, so you mentioned the term I can't let go. You talked about the term financial porn. So I know what you're talking about, but just in case someone doesn't, because I see it on TikTok all the time, tell us what that is.
Well, this is a trigger for me, only because taxes are not something that are sexy, but they have a lot of pain points for people. Taxes aren't fun, and a lot of people are afraid of the IRS. And so you have these people online, and there's no one in particular, I'm just saying in general, right?
Yep.
There's lots of people who will tell you how to set up LLCs, how to apply for business credit using an LLC, even though you might not have a business. They'll tell you what deductions to take on a tax return or in your business, even though that might not be ordinary or reasonable for your business. They'll tell you how to make these profits disappear from your bottom line so that you don't have to pay a tax on them. They'll tell you how to, form your businesses using a series of LLCs and trusts so that you don't have to pay taxes on any of your income. And I say financial porn because the problem is people kind of feed off that. And because it's clickbaity, it gets shared and it gets liked, and the general public doesn't necessarily understand all the implications of what is or can or cannot be done with that information. And so I say financial porn just because that's exactly what it is. It's all the majority of it. I won't say all of it because there is some good information. There's a couple really good people who I'm happy to name drop. Dennis does a pretty good job. Edward Collins does a good job. Tom Wheelwright, Mark Kohler, yourself, their Coalfield Advisor typically does. There's a couple really good people on social media that give. I try and think I don't have as many followers per se, but I try and drop some information, But besides that, there's a lot of people who just give information that is not situational. And I think the hard part is most people don't understand that unless their name is going on your tax return, they have no legal recourse for whatever is happening. They're not responsible for that information. And that's where I think people get in trouble.
Yeah. So what would you advise the person that, they're sitting scrolling through social media and they see some tax strategies that they think, well, that sounds like it's something that I should take advantage of. What should they do with that?
Well, the first thing that I would do is go to your advisor and ask them what I would ask your advisor. And this is, I think, where I think it differentiates a lot of people. Ask your advisor, how could I implement this into my strategy? Or how does this pertain to me? In some instances, it probably doesn't. And you need to be okay that some things don't fall into what you're able to do, right? But in a lot of other instances, especially with taxes, the conversation, at least with a good advisor, is going to be, well, you're set up like this, and you need to be set up like that in order to take advantage of it. So if we did X, Y, and Z, you could take advantage of it, And I have a really good mentor. His name's Tom Wheelwright, and he says, if you want to change your tax, you have to change your facts. And so figuring out how to
Mm,
change your facts so that you can change the taxes part of the plan. So first off, take it to your advisor. If you don't have an advisor, find a good one, right? Second thing is you can go online, and whether you look at Bloomberg tax, Thomson Reuters, even the IRS website, there is a lot of really good information that's fairly easy. I won't say it's easy. You have to do a little bit of homework, but it's fairly easy to sift through to try and determine what is right, what is wrong, is it out of context, different things like that.
yeah. Okay. Great. That's a great idea. One of the questions I get a lot of this year, and I only play a tax lawyer on TV, is should I be an S corp? Right, they're an LLC owner, and they
Mm,
want to know, should I make an S-Corp election? And I know that's something that challenged me for several years as a new business owner with this firm on what to do. Is that something that you help your clients figure out?
yes, yeah, absolutely. I would say that an S corporation election is a tax strategy that you can take advantage of, depending on, again, your situation. Based on, we kind of have some metrics for whatever your net profit
Yeah.
is, because that does play into effect, what the consistency and the outlook of that income is going to be. But yeah, S corporation is something that I think a lot of individuals. In fact, I just about 3 weeks ago, I did a consultation with someone. They have a small business. It's not small by any means. They're doing gross about $500,000 a year,
Yeah.
and they were complaining about paying too much in taxes. Their net profit was about $175,000, and they were not an S corporation, And so
Mm,
I was like, yeah, you are paying too much in tax. Your ordinary income tax rate plus 15.3% on your net profit. Yeah, you're paying 40 to 50% in taxes. You know, get an S corporation, you file an election, and now you get rid of 15.3% on all your net profits, less your wage. That could be huge for you. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big thing.
Yeah. So if you're in a situation like that where you're not, if you're only doing $50,000 in revenue, that's not something that you're probably ready to have that conversation. But if you
Yeah.
are doing 100,000 or more and have some significant net profit, have a conversation with your advisor and make sure that you shouldn't be making that election. That's December is kind of a time of year to start talking about what's coming up, and so that's a good time of year to have those conversations about what tax elections or strategies could I implement. And again, like I
Yeah.
can't do those for you, but I know some questions you should be asking your advisors, because I've had to ask them, and because there's times I didn't and should have, and paid more in taxes than I would have
Yeah.
if I'd have been a little more inquiry, if I'd asked a few more questions along the way instead of just going along and writing the checks as they were due.
Yeah.
What I know, one of the things with you, another reason we connected is you're a family guy. You spend a lot of time with your
Yeah.
kids. I know that you and your wife still spend a lot of time together. I've seen you guys take trips and do things, and that's
Yeah.
it's wonderful. How do you do it? How do you have this work life balance? How have you pulled that off?
I've got to be honest, a lot of it is my spouse. I am a workaholic. If it were, and I'm more of a homebody too. I would much rather be hanging out at home doing stuff around the house than going on trips. She's got the travel bug, but we have to set aside that time, and she understands during certain parts of the year I might be busier. If we're working on a certain project, I might be a little busier in different things. But I think part of it just has to do with the way I was raised. I have a really good mom and dad, and they kind of instilled in us that, hey, no matter what happens after this life, your family's the thing that you get to hang out with then. And that's kind of a core personal spiritual belief that we have, is that we can be with our families for forever. And so I don't know. I look at I kind of jokingly say to my wife, if I weren't married and if I didn't have kids, I'd be much better. Well, I'd be much more well off than I am now.
Yeah.
But I also look at other friends who either have sacrificed that relationship for the sake of money or success. I look at some other individuals who are either the same age or maybe even a little older than I am, who haven't gotten married or who don't have kids, and I don't know. Like that to me, that's a hard trade-off for me to comprehend, because the relationship that I have with my spouse is unbelievable. She's my best friend, and we get along great. We spend a lot of time together, which sometimes I'm sure she gets sick of me, but we have a good time. And my boys, like, geez, they're 3 and 1, but they're already like, it's the greatest relationship I have with them. I love walking home in the house every day, and no matter where they are, whether downstairs or in one of their bedrooms, they both come running out and screaming dad and want to hug. Like, that's
Yep.
the best feeling in the world,
Yeah.
right? So it's hard to say that, it's hard to do, but yeah, you set a boundary, you live with that boundary, and um yeah, I mean, that relationship, it's worth the world to me. So
You mentioned faith, so how does your faith influence your approach to business?
well, so this is I don't know. It's actually a good question, Scott. So I grew up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon faith, if you will. And uh one, like, historically, members of the Church of Jesus Christ have always been very good or fairly good at living below their means. Don't spend what you don't have, make more than you spend, save for a rainy day. They frequently talk about having food storage for an emergency, having,
Hmm.
kind of the nest egg set aside, insurances to protect yourself. And so, and then we believe in the principle of a tithe. So we pay a 10%, which is an ancient biblical law that we believe
Yep.
in. And so a couple of those, I think, have influenced certain decisions that I make as far as how we spend our money, what we spend our money on, or how we save our money. But I I would also have to say that I think I've learned more about money outside of that institutional religion than I have inside the institutional religion. Only because I think there's kind of this stigma with religious people where, you hear in the scriptures, money is the root of all evil. And some people think it's like a sin to have a lot of money or be wealthy. And I think that's a real thing among Christianity, whether you're, Catholic, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, or you're a Methodist or
Hmm.
whatever, right? Baptist. But I think that's just kind of a general philosophy, if you will, among a good portion of Christians. And so I don't know, that's kind of like a hard question to swallow, if you will.
Yeah, it's a deep one. The Yeah, I mean, just because I know you and I know that you live by a code of a strong code of ethics, and that you believe in doing the right thing, even when it's hard. And I think there's things that kind of that really inform who you are in your business, that you might not even
Yeah.
be hyper aware of it. But it does have an effect on how you think about things and how you treat people and how you treat the people that work for you. Because I know that you're not just building a business, you're building people, and then the
Yeah.
people will help you reach your goals. Um,
Yeah.
Finally, Brady, I want you to look into the camera, because you and I are doing really well right now. We're blessed with family that are healthy and everything's good, and our businesses are good. But there's someone listening right now who's everything's not going their way. They're not what I would call shatterproof.
Yeah.
They're struggling. What would you tell that entrepreneur to help them get out of that and to have some impact in their industry?
That's that's a hard one, because I think everyone's dealing with something, and I think, even though we would like to sit and console and empathize with them, it's hard to do that with lots of people, with what they're going through, and I wouldn't trade what I'm going through with maybe what someone else is going through. But um I remember, so when I was serving my church mission, I lived in Colombia, South America, for 2 years. And I was in a lot of different situations where it wasn't easy. I was 18, 19 years old, living on my own. I sometimes didn't understand the language very well. Maybe the food made me sick. But one of the lessons that I learned during that time was the more that I focused on other people, serving other people, helping other people, it came back to me tenfold. Maybe I learned more, or
Mm,
I understood the language more, or I got food out of it, or a simple juice, for performing service. And I've learned that in business too. They call it giver's gain, right? The more apt you are to help someone in need, look outwards, the more you will find what you need internally. We live in a very selfish society, which I think kind of plays into the depression conversation. It
mhm.
plays into the anger conversation. And if we were all just a little bit more inclined to look outside of ourselves, even though we might be having issues, the last week and a half has been really heavy for me and my family. We're dealing with a couple different things, but so I understand what some difficult situations might be. But if you look outside yourself, find someone to serve who, a lesson that I was taught a long time ago. If you try and look up, as far as monetary value goes, you can only look so high. Right now that person's Elon Musk. No one makes more money than Elon Musk, right?
Right.
But if you look down, there's always someone who has less, always. And so
Mm,
that was kind of impactful for me.
wow. So always someone doing worse, and the best way to get
Yeah,
out of your mess is to go serve someone else. That was really powerful.
yeah.
Um, thank you for being on the show. Where can the listeners and viewers catch up with you? Where should they go?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me on, Scott. I always enjoy having conversations with you. Easiest place to find me is Instagram at the Brady Slack. There, again, like I mentioned, I have some content that we put out. I have my own podcast, and you can find links to all of that in my bio. You can also find links to our website, www.highcountryfinance.com. You can schedule a consultation, find some different free resources there, or DM me, ask questions. I'm happy to help, and find booking links here shortly within the next week to have a conversation of your own and answer some tax questions on my podcast. So,
Yes, that's gonna be so cool. Well, in closing, I want to offer you a blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be
thank
at your
you.
back. May the sun shine warm on your face, and may the rains fall up softly upon your fields until we meet again. And may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thanks for being on the show, Brady. It's been a blast having you in the Shatterproof room. All of you out there, if you enjoyed the show and found value in the conversation, please subscribe. And we'll see you next week on the Shatterproof Entrepreneur.